What's up, guys? It's Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down 10 different ways wide receivers can beat press coverage. So we're going to be walking you guys through 10 different press releases, when to use each press release, the name of each press release, and then obviously how you guys can improve it in the game situation required. So I hope this video helps you guys out. Hope it teaches you a few new things. But also, fellas, if you're a wide receiver and you want to get some work in with us this offseason, we've already been to 7 different states, but we are traveling out to 4 more states for off-season, 2-day-long QB and wide receiver training camp. So our next stop is going to be Dallas, Texas. Then we're heading out to Nashville, Tennessee, Salt Lake City, Utah, and Los Angeles, California. So if you guys want some more information on that, what we'll be covering at the camps, check out that very first link in the description below. You guys, it's 2 days of work, 4 hours each day, and we're going to have DBs out there as well to work on one-on-ones for you guys and applying those game-type realistic situations. So check out that very first link below. We would love to have you out to one of our camps, fellas. Let's get started. So first release here, we're going to give you guys the name, the situation, and then obviously break down the clip. So the name of this release is I call a square up release. So if you guys maybe are taking notes on this, you want to write down square up release. So that is essentially when you have a DB who's maybe 1 to 2 yards inside shade, and you have like an outside breaking route, right? The releases that we choose are not based on the routes. They are based on the leverage and the timing of the play. So what a lot of people ask is, hey, what's the best release for this route? What's the best release for a post route, a fade route? And it all depends on the leverage of the DB. So when he's inside shade, 2 to 3 yards off, we call this a square up release. So essentially that is when you attack his leverage and go at him and then give him a crossover move. So let's play this thing full speed. So this wide receiver goes at him for a step, gives him that crossover, attacks him inside, and then is able to create space on that out route, and then obviously a great one-handed snag. So this could be a couple different ways. Like his feet are split. Your feet do not have to necessarily be split on this release. You could have your inside foot up, but essentially it's where you take 2 steps at the leverage of the DB and then take 2 more steps to cross him up. Now, because his feet are switched, he's only taking 1 step. But again, like I said, it could be 2 steps. But the main thing is that you want to attack him. We attack his leverage because that DB, when he's lined up inside leverage, he's trying to protect the inside. He does not want you to run a slant. So that's what the term square up means. I want to square him up. I want to attack the midline, which is like an imaginary line that goes down the middle of the DB's body. And then I want to threaten him. I want to threaten him where he doesn't want me to go. So I hit him with that crossover. So that is that square up release, fellas. You square him up for a step or 2, and then you hit him with a crossover. So square up for a step, crossover to threaten to the inside. Make sure we're stepping outside of his frame, and the hips and shoulders sell the inside move. Let's play this thing again full speed, and then we'll get to a release where you guys can learn how to beat a more physical guy who lunges at you off the line of scrimmage. So he comes at him, 1, 2, 3, hits him with that inside move, and then breaks off on this out route. Great overall rep. So now, second release I want to talk about is something called a step back release. So some of you might be familiar with this. Now, a step back release is when a DB is right up on the line, not giving us much space, and he is going to get physical with his hands. So a step back is something you would want to use in the situation of a physical guy, but also when you're not in a stack formation and you have a route that is like, maybe quicker developing, I guess. This is going to be a post, and this would be totally fine to use on a post if you don't waste time. So a step back is essentially where you take your front foot and you pretty much just step back. You create a little bit more space for yourself from this DB. So if he's going to get right up on the line and lunge, you step back to create that range. So now you can operate, maybe give him a quick move or just get up into the route and react to his leverage. So let's play this thing full speed. So this is textbook right here. Lunges at him, hits the step back, and then breaks up into this route. Now, one of the key mistakes that wide receivers will make on this step back is that when they step back like so, this DB will lunge, right? And they created space for themselves. They're in a good spot. And then they do all these pointless moves behind the line of scrimmage. Here's the thing, fellas. When you guys step back, you are not going forward. So if you're going to do that step back, it's a great thing to work on. It's a great move to have in your tool belt. But if you're not going forward and you don't get upfield right away, you're going to lose timing with that quarterback. What did we talk about at the very beginning of this? It's about leverage. And the whole reason we need to understand the leverage of a DB and understand what to do off the line is to keep timing and to keep spacing. So if I do this step back, but I'm wasting all this time behind the line of scrimmage, this DB did his job. The whole point of a press release, the whole point of press coverage is to screw up the timing with the quarterback, get hands on the wide receiver. So if we're doing that ourselves, that's making the DB's job really easy. So if you're going to do this step back, make sure we step back, come to balance, then let's get up into this route. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. So second release, fellas, we learned about the square up release and the step back release. So let's play this thing full speed, steps back, using this against a physical DB who is right on the line trying to get hands. So now, next release here, some of you might be familiar with this. This is called, and I promise you we're gonna get into a little bit more advanced releases after these. These are just a good introduction to you guys. So now, next release is going to be a wide step release. So if you have not heard of the wide step release, a wide step release is essentially exactly how it sounds. You are stepping with this back foot wide outside the DB's frame to try to move him outside to take an inside release. So this would be an inside release route. So now, and again, an inside release route could mean anything. You could run any route with an inside release. You have to get comfortable with everything with an inside or even an outside release, with the exception of maybe a comeback and a curl. Now, when I have this DB, I want to use this wide step when he's outside shade or head up like so. But if I use this wide step, a lot of people think when the DB's inside shade and you have to run like a post route, you'd want to use this wide step. You'd think, oh, he's inside shade, I'm going to step wide to get him to jump and then run the post. But you have to understand, a DB's lined up inside shade in that case. We would never use this because he's inside shade. His whole goal is to protect the inside. So if you're trying to step wide, he's okay with that. He's fine with you releasing to the outside because that's where his help is. And the help is his sideline. But if he's outside shade or he's head up, he may not be okay with you releasing to the outside, because especially if he's outside shade, because that's what he's not trying to give up. His help is the inside. So he wants you to run inside. You have to always be threatening his leverage. So let's play this thing full speed. So he hits this wide step release, gets the DB off. The DB kind of shades to the outside after the play, so it worked out very, very well for us release-wise. But the key on this wide step is you have to make it look like a fade in one single step. So you have to have some quickness, and you have to actually step wide. So a lot of wide receivers will just go here. They'll line up in their stance, and they'll just step wide. They won't do any kind of prep step or kick step to get some explosion. Now, I'm a big believer in the prep step and the kick step, and this receiver uses kind of a little bit of both, but you pay attention to his back foot. You see how it kicks behind. All that does is to kind of like, all that serves to do is like springboard his hips. He kicks behind so he could shoot his hip to the outside. There's something about you kicking behind that will load your hips up and allow you to actually throw wide and step all the way here, which is what threatens that DB's leverage. And if you bring your hip, if you bring your shoulder, you're actually selling it to the outside. That is what will get the DB to move. Okay, so that is a wide step release. Now, he could run whatever. He comes off this wide step, he could go run a post. He comes off this wide step and this DB's right with him. Fine, I could still run this out route. It's better than, if he had to run this out route, it's better than him, this DB's outside shade trying to force the outside release, because that DB will get hands and squeeze you to the sideline. So this is a great release to use when you want to take an inside release, or you have to take an inside release against an outside shade DB. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Great example of the wide step, moving that DB off the line and then accelerating out of this break. So now, next release I want to talk about is a split release. So a split release, this is something that a lot of people may have heard of, may have not heard of, but a split release is the same thing as a wide step, exactly how it sounds. You're essentially just splitting your feet. So you are bringing this back foot up even with your front foot, and your front foot is going out. So you are splitting your feet. Now, it's a way to get a reaction off of this DB and read the DB, but also just a way to like freeze him, if you will. So like if you've been working release, you want to work this, and I personally like this one against a head up guy, but you could use it against all three. You could use it against head up, you could use it against outside, you could use it against inside. But I like this split release when he's head up because you get a reaction off of him. So we'll play this thing full speed. So Chase he splits his feet, gives a little hesitation, then is able to get up into this route. So that split is so great because it allows you to come to balance and get a read on this DB. So a lot of times DBs, like they show their leverage pre-snap, right? Maybe they line up inside shade, maybe they line up outside shade, but if he lines up head up and we maybe don't know what leverage he's trying to keep, what release might be a free release, if you will. And what I mean by free release is if he's lined up inside shade, your free release would be to the outside, right? So we do this split release to get a read on him. Right? So I split, I'm in a position of balance right here. When you bring your front foot up or when you bring your back foot up and your front foot out and you get to this position with your feet outside your shoulders, good pad level, a good knee bend, this is a position of balance. If that DB shades to the inside, Easily, Chase could react, push off the right foot, and open up and take the outside release. This DB shades to the outside, though, in this example, so what does he do? He pushes off of the left foot, opens up with the right, and takes the inside release. It's a great way to freeze this DB, but also to react off of this DB. Textbook example of that split release right there, fellas. So we could use this on any route. And again, you could use this on any leverage. It's just a way to freeze that guy. If you've been working that wide step, like maybe if you've been working that attack or that square up release like we were talking about, a lot of faster paced releases, and then you come at him with a split release, it's a great way to freeze him, great way to force a reaction and to read this DB. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Great job by Chase splitting, dipping that shoulder, and then restacking back over the top. So now, next release that we're going to talk about here is more of like a foot fire release, okay? So a foot fire release is kind of builds off of that like square up release, I guess you could say. Same kind of coverage. It's just like a faster pace of maybe doing a square up release. It's not like a slow pace release by any means, but it's definitely not so much a hesitation release, but it's more of something just to throw another tool at this DB, just to keep him guessing. Right? So we have inside shade guy. He ends up doing something called the dive release afterwards, and we're going to get to that. I just want to talk about the steps leading up to it. So he comes off, foot fire is exactly how it sounds. It's when you have it's like your hands and your feet are on fire. You were trying to work them as fast as possible. So he comes off of here, hands, feet working, foot fire. This is the foot fire right here. Hands and feet are working. It's almost like he's doing that old typical wide receiver coaching method of beating the drums. You want to use this foot fire when you have to attack and close space with the DB. That's the only time you want to do it because there's 3 different ways you could do it. He's inside shade, right? You could do that like square up release where you go at him for 2 steps, then cross over. You could do like a little hesitation skip like Davante Adams does where you hop at him almost, where you keep a good pad level though, you don't pop your chest up. Or throw another tool in there, a foot fire. A foot fire is when you have to close space with the DB, and it's a great way to force a reaction out of him or to keep him on his toes. So a foot fire release, fellas, is the next release that we are covering. So it's anytime that you got to close space, inside shade, outside shade, head up, and he's maybe a couple yards off. That foot fire is a great way to get into his cushion and to keep him guessing with your speed and with your tempo. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Great job with the foot fire, and then breaking this thing back off inside and creating space on this DB. So now, next release I want to talk about is more like a reaction release, if you will. So I would consider this like this. A lot of people would think this is a diamond release, and we're going to get into that in a second. But this is more like a reaction if it's more of a reaction if this DB takes away what we are trying to do. So a lot of times, fellas, releases are about reacting. It's not about coming up to the line and just predetermine what I'm going to do every single time, knowing what I'm going to do as soon as I walk up there. And if it doesn't work, I'm screwed. Sometimes this DB might just take it away. And if he takes it away, I got to be able to react. So Doug Baldwin's going to be running a fade here. Now, typically on a fade, we would love to take an outside release. Always would like to take an outside release. It's a lot easier that way. It makes things a lot easier. We don't have to restack as much. Sometimes the quarterback has an easier time with the throw. If there's a safety over the middle, it's a much easier time for us. But if that DB takes it away, I do myself no good trying to just run around him and getting squeezed to the sideline. This DB, if he gets hands on my hips, squeezes me to that sideline, doesn't do me any good. I'm completely out of the play. So Doug Baldwin does a great job of reacting. So this could be used in any situation, fellas. This could be used in like press coverage. This could be used, I more so like this one when it's obviously off coverage, but you can react in any situation. If a DB's inside shade and let's say you're trying to run a post and like let's say you attack him but then he like starts backpedaling to the outside, just take what he gives you and take the inside release. It really just is about keeping spacing and keeping timing. So let's play this thing full speed. So Doug Baldwin comes off, he attacks outside, DB takes away the outside, but look what he does. He takes the inside release. I know the clip cuts off a little bit there. He ends up catching this thing. But again, he gives himself space for the QB to fade him. He closes the distance. He works to the outside. This DB's taken away the outside. Okay, fine. I'll put the brakes on, react, and I will take the inside release to restack. If you restack, fellas, it's no different than taking an outside release. Everybody's so against an inside release on a fade ball, but if you can just restack and get over the top, what's the difference? The QB, you still have a step on the DB. He's still trailing you. Just now the QB has more space to fade you outside, and that's the name of the game. Guys will get in trouble when they do this, and then they just keep running to the inside. You have to make sure that we restack. You have to make sure that that DB ends up trailing your back hip. so the QB can throw you open. Let's play this thing again full speed. I know the clip cuts off. I apologize for that, but that was the best way to get the angle of the release. Great job of reacting. Great job not forcing the release to the outside and then giving the QB space to fade him out. Now, this release we're going to talk about here is for the bigger guys, okay? So if you're a wide receiver and you're on the bigger side of things, you're a taller guy, more physical guy, this is a good release for you to use, and this is called a shock release. So this is when you're just bigger, stronger than the DB, and you know that you could just manhandle him off the line. So this is something maybe you use early in the game, maybe your backside on a play to set the tone to know that that DB is not going to have the easiest time in the world jamming you and getting hands. So maybe he starts to back off a little bit. Maybe we get a little bit more off coverage, off man, zone coverage. So a shock release is pretty much when you just come up and you just shock him. You just block him right off the line pretty much essentially. And it's a push. You're definitely pushing him off, but within 5 yards, it is completely legal. So you come off the line. Again, I could use this when he's right up in my face, like if he's maybe a yard or two closer. I could use this if he's off like this, but anything within 5 yards, inside shade, outside shade, head up, I could do this shock release. So if you're a smaller dude going up against a bigger DB, I don't recommend this. If you're going up against a very strong DB, I don't recommend this because it's a great way to just get jammed and get locked up. It is for the guys who are on the bigger side of things going up against a smaller DB. And as bigger guys, sometimes DBs want to jam us because we're an easier target, right, when we're taller. I sure as hell never had that problem, but a lot of taller wide receivers will have that problem. So making sure that you set the tone early is the whole point of this release. So you want to make sure we go at him, we get low, we drive from my legs and drive from my hips just like you would on a block to knock that DB off his platform. That is a shock release, okay? So now, next three releases, last three. This is going to be a diamond release. So a diamond release is a great way to run a slant when he's inside shade. So if he's inside shade, you would want to make sure that if you're running the slant route, you wouldn't just attack him. You wouldn't just attack his midline, then go run, because this DB's inside shade for one reason, to protect the inside, to force you outside. So we want to threaten the outside shoulder. We want to try to get his hips to flip. No matter what the coverage is, you can always threaten a DB with a fade. No DB wants to get beat on a fade. So if you can, on this diamond release, it's 3 steps. So you would go right, left, right on a 45-degree angle at this DB's outside shoulder. That will get him to open up his hips, and we could slip back under if I sell it. The only time you use this is against an inside shade DB. He could be pressed up right on the line. He could be 2 to 3 yards off. Either one. So he comes off, 1, 2, 3, gets the DB to flip his hips, and then is able to run and accelerate on this slant. So big things about this. To get this DB to bite, you cannot take choppy steps. DBs are taught to look for that. And you cannot raise your pad level up. Because if you get to that break point and then he starts to see your chest pop up in the air, starts to see your feet chop down, starts to feel your speed slow down, all indicators on the break. You have to make sure that my hips and shoulders are committed to the fade, to the 45. I'm running in full stride, and I'm able to break this thing off suddenly without raising my pad level and giving a DB an indicator. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Great job by this wide receiver using this diamond release and getting that DB to flip his hips. So now you got the diamond release, then you have the opposite of it, which is called a dive release. So you got diamond and dive. So a dive is when you pretty much just dive right in front of this DB's face. You try to cross his face right away. So a dive release is just pretty much, it could be 2 or 3 steps, but the dive release is just going to take you, it is going to give you an outside release. You could use this on a 5-yard out. You could use this on a 10-yard out, corner. You could use it on a fade. I like it on any of those. So let's play this thing full speed. I like this when the DB is head up, not when he is outside leverage. When he's outside leverage, I necessarily wouldn't want to do this. I like it when he is head up and we were trying to sell a drag. So let's play this thing full speed. So this wide receiver comes off, 1, 2 hard steps, gets that DB to flip his hips. Easy money on the separation. So it's the same idea, same principles apply. To get this DB to flip to the drag, we have to make sure my hips and shoulders are committed. Got to make sure I'm running in full stride and I'm running full speed. If I can do those 3 things, that DB will crash. So he comes off the line, and then you see that's his first step right there off the line. Second step. Hips and shoulders are committed. He's got speed. He's running in full stride. All 3 of those things make the route look like a drag. Yeah, you're selling fade on every route, but sometimes you're setting up routes off of a drag, off of, maybe a slant, off of a 1-step slant. But 2 hard steps crossing that DB's face and making sure that we are selling it with my body and stride and speed, and that will get me space. So that is a dive release. You have the diamond to the outside, dive to the inside. Great job by that wide receiver flipping those DB's hips and then getting out of this break. So now, last release we're going to cover from Justin Jefferson. It's called a a slide and go release. So it's a hesitation release for sure, but it's to build off of that slide release. So maybe a couple times, like a slide release is when you have a DB who's inside shade, you slide to the outside. It's like the diamond release, but like you give like a little shuffle tempo. DB maybe shuffles with you, you give a crossover and you run the slant. So now maybe we've got him on that a couple times. So this slide and go is when that DB's trying to stay disciplined. A lot of DBs are taught anytime that you see a wide receiver hesitate to the outside, expect the slant and sit to the inside. So if he's going to cheat it and sit to the inside, I could hesitate and just take off. And that is where we can win on a lot of fade balls, a lot of comebacks, a lot of digs, a lot of routes. You could use this on any route, in my opinion, but you'd want to use it when he's inside shade and it builds off the slide. So let's watch Jefferson do it one time. So he slides, DB sits inside, and then we're able to beat him with speed to the outside. If you're a faster wide receiver and you use a lot of this slide release, this is a great release to use. Let's say maybe in your offense, you guys run a lot of RPOs. You guys run a lot of like slower developing, like slants or 5-yard ins. So you do a lot of this slide release and you're using that tempo a lot. A good DB on film will study that. He'll know that you like to use that slide release a lot. So maybe we come at him with a slide and go. He's expecting the slide release slant for you to slide to the outside. He wants to stay disciplined. He wants to stay to the inside. He wants to try to keep his leverage and be disciplined. So I could slide, and that forces him to make a decision. He's either got to come outside, and we got to react, or he's got to sit inside. Now, let's say you have a fade call. It's a predetermined play call. Obviously, you can't change the route mid-play. What would you do if he didn't keep it and he just jumped to the outside and he widened? Okay, fine. I could just put the brakes on if he wants to jump outside, just like that reaction release that we talked about with Doug Baldwin, and I could take the inside release, work to restack, and go run the fade. The great part about this slide release is that it forces that DB to make a decision. He could either shuffle with me or he could sit inside. And if he wants to sit inside, I know I got him on the fade. If he wants to shuffle with me, I could get him on the fade with an inside release, or I know damn well I got him on that slant the next time I decide to use this. So that slide and go release is a great release to get separation and to keep that DB guessing. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Great job hesitating, holding that DB to the inside, and then winning that foot race. All we need is a step, fellas, especially if we have a talented QB. All right, fellas, I really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you guys have any questions at all, don't hesitate to leave those in the comment section below. We always appreciate the feedback. It's always great to hear from you guys as usual. And again, fellas, if you'd like to come out and train with us, we're coming out to 4 more states this offseason. We're traveling out to Dallas, Texas, Nashville, Tennessee, Salt Lake City, Utah, and Los Angeles, California. So check out that very first link below if you want some more information on our off-season camps. I'll see you guys next time.